Well, good morning. A happy Monday, everybody. That's James. I'm Kyle. Joe Brazil behind the glass. And let's get a big round of applause for Joe Brazil. This isn't nearly as good of an applause as we used to have. But Joe is going to be with us now 5 days a week. Joe, go ahead and jump in here. Good morning. How's it going, man?
Dude, it's going great. Good morning.
You said you were a little nervous. Are the nerves wearing off now that the show is starting?
The nerves have worn off a little bit, yeah. It was a little odd. I've done this before.
Sure.
But, yeah, I was a little bit nervous last night. It's kind of stepping into a new role and whatnot. But I'm feeling great now, dude. I'm so stoked to be here.
Excellent. We're stoked to have you.
Let's
Joe Brazil, he's here full-time now. We love this very much. Where's my buttons? There it is. One more round of applause for our guy, Joe. So you'll be hearing a lot more from him moving forward. All right. James Ham is also here. We're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. We are the Insiders. We're hanging out with you until noon, and then we'll hand it off to D-Lo and KC. Joe, I'm going to punch you for a minute. We're going to hand it off to D-Lo and KC. Appreciate everybody listening on the radio, everybody listening on the free Odyssey app, and, of course, you in the chatty house at youtube.com/ESPN1320 and twitch.tv/ESPN1320. All right, good news and bad news for the Kings over the weekend. They had a really nice weekend in the standings, and we'll get to it, but, of course, up top here, Domantas Sabonis, grade 1 hamstring strain. He suffered that early in the second minute of Saturday night's game against the Rockets. The Kings held on to win 113-103. The Kings say Domantas Sabonis will be reevaluated next week. So let's start there. Could have been a lot worse.
Oh, yeah, it could have been horrible. I mean, that could have been season ending.
Yeah.
So a grade 1 is basically a super mild strain. And, not a lot of fibers and stuff were damaged. Mm-hmm. And so you're hoping that 1 to 2 weeks he could be back in the flow and we could see him back on the court. We'll have to wait and see how he sort of responds to treatment and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think we all saw it. He grabbed at his hamstring in the previous game. Mm-hmm. And so you started to know that, hey, something's going on there. Mm-hmm. And it might have even started with him grabbing at his low back I think 2 games ago, where you're like, ooh, that looked like it hurt. And all of those things are connected. So it's a good thing that he's not going to be out long term. And it's also a good thing that the Kings went out and got Jonas Valanciunas at the trade deadline, because this is what we've talked about. It's not just the minutes that Alex Len had to play when Domas was there. Mm-hmm. It's the minutes that could potentially be opened up if something happens to Domas. Mm-hmm. And now you have a really, really, really good backup center that is starter quality for about half the teams in the league.
Yeah, man. Valanciunas was really good in extended minutes on Saturday. 15 points, 14 boards. He had 3 blocks. There was a massive, massive advantage the Kings gave themselves when they went out and got an adequate backup center, because we've been asking for it.
Yeah.
And I also want to circle Trey Lyles, who I thought had a really effective game as well. But knowing that this is let's remove Jonas Valanciunas from the equation here for a second. This is code red emergency.
Oh yeah. For the Kings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how they're going to win any games, but you see against a good Rockets team, you saw Valanciunas step in and play really well. And the Kings just as a whole, I thought had a really nice outing down there in Houston. And now all of a sudden you're looking and going, okay, yeah, you'd rather have Domantas Sabonis than not. But I don't see this as a massive end of the world type of deal anymore, because you get a close enough facsimile with Jonas Valanciunas that, man, it's not it's a loss, but it's not one that I don't think the Kings are incapable of overcoming now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that people need to realize is that Domas plays almost every single night. He's missed 3 games this season. Last year, he didn't miss a single game. The year before that, he missed 3. He's like a workhorse for you, and you rely so heavily on him for everything that he does. But I got to be honest, like, as you're making this transformation from the team that you were to the team that you are now with the new players that you've brought in, like, Valanciunas plays a style that so many players in the league have played with a center like him. Mm-hmm. So it might actually be easier for a handful of these players to just step on the court and play and find more success with Valanciunas. Mm-hmm. Long term, the potential for growth and the potential to, your ceiling can be way higher with Sabonis because of his passing ability. But Valanciunas sets a mean screen. He's a great rebounder. takes up huge amount of space in the lane.
Mhm.
You just worry that, foul trouble, you now have a little bit less depth at that position.
Mhm.
But also now it might open a door for Trey Lyles to get more action on the floor where he's kind of been left out of the rotation
Mhm.
over the last week or so.
Yeah, I thought he was really good on Saturday. The other branch that grows off of this is it was reported yesterday by you, James Hammond, the Kings beat, that Skal Labissière had signed a 10-day contract with the Kings.
Mhm.
Is this has to just be a depth thing, right?
Oh yeah, it's a depth
Like
thing.
this is not Skal is going to step in and enter the rotation.
Well, I mean, it just depends on whether Skal plays or not. Really does depend on where you're at with within each individual game. I mean, if you build a 15-20 point lead, or if you're down 15-20 points to a team, Skal's going to play. And to me, it's a good thing, because what you're doing here is, some people will say, hey, why not Isaac Jones? We'll get into that in a minute. But Skal specifically, Skal has been a franchise player for you. He's a guy who's been sitting down at the G League level, putting in good work, being a good teammate and a good coach, and helping bring along a young group of players for the last 2 seasons. And to reward Skal is tremendous. So for people who don't know, G League players don't make hardly anything. Like, two-way contracts are half of a rookie scale NBA contract. So rookie scale this year, I think, is 1.4 million. So G League two-way players make roughly $700,000, right? A standard G League player makes like $42,000. So when Skal gets a call up, a 10-day contract is the equivalent of years of service for his amount of time in the league. And so I think it'll be around $140,000 for 10 days.
So this is a depth thing, but also like a little financial.
Well, yeah, you're rewarding somebody who's been in your system, and you're saying, look, man, whether you're going to play or not, we need depth. You're like 6'11", 7 foot tall. Skal's always been a very, very talented player, just wasn't ever physical enough. And so for him, this is like an opportunity for him to basically make 3.5 times what he was going to make as a G League player.
Yeah.
And it's just for 10 days. And if he gets a second 10 day, because Domas might need a little bit more time, maybe you bring him up. And then, the Kings do have 2 open roster spots still. So there's still room for them to do something like sign Skal for the remainder of the season and bring Isaac Jones up. The one issue with Isaac Jones that we'll get to, but it's that he's up to 42 games on his 2-way contract. You only get 50. So the Kings have 8 games before he is no longer eligible. And even if you were to bring him, if you were to keep that eligibility and get to the playoffs, he can't play in the playoffs because 2-way players aren't allowed to play in the playoffs.
Is the cutoff for standard contracts playing in the playoffs the same as like free agents?
Yeah. No.
Does that make sense?
No.
If you convert a 2-way contract to a standard contract on the last day of the season, they can play in the playoffs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. You remember this happened with the Warriors, and they ended up waiving Omri Caspi.
Cavs legend Ty Jerome.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, they waived Omri Caspi, and that was, I think, the last game Omri ever played in the NBA. They waived him the day before the playoffs, and he thought he was going to make the playoff roster, and then all of a sudden he was gone. And they just wanted the depth for somebody who was playing a different position and that they needed. But yeah, as far as like 2-way players and stuff like that, or 10-day contracts, all that stuff, they can play. The way that it works, players have to clear waivers by March 1st. If they're playing for a different team, get waived, and then you sign them and they're still eligible for the playoffs.
Right.
So that's not going to be the case. I mean, Skal, if they did sign him for the rest of the season, which I don't think they will, but if they did, then he would basically be able to play in the playoffs and everything else.
So something that I don't know if you know this about me, I was a big Skal Labissière guy.
Okay.
Like, I was so convinced back in 2017 that Skal Labissière was going to be that dude. And I pulled up some of my own receipts on Twitter.
Oh, no.
March 11th, 2017, from ya boy. The Kings have a gem with Skal. Hang on, it gets better. Between him, Buddy Hield, Willie Cauley-Stein, and Malachi Richardson, Sac has some pieces. It's a bad beat for your boy. That's 0 for 4. Named 4 dudes there, and none of them are turned out to be good players. That same quartet had another tweet later where I'm like, man, the Kings, watch out. Talked about Scal becoming like a 17-9 guy. October 26, 2017. Scal Labissiere is going to be the Kings' best player by 2019. Didn't happen. That's tough.
So I have like a major soft spot in my heart for Scal, watching him as a young player, covering him as a young player. And when he was there as, his first time around, he really he hung out in the locker room all the time. And there was a big group of players that would hang out in the locker room all the time. But I had so many conversations with Scal. He's such a good human being. And just, his story is amazing. Kyle and I and Joe, we were talking about it before. Like, he survived the earthquake in Haiti. His apartment building collapsed on him and his mom and his brother after his dad had dropped him off after school. And he got stuck in the rubble, like being crushed under the weight of a wall for 8 hours and in the seated position. And it took him like 2 months to learn how to walk again. And then his parents had said no to like missionaries coming in and taking Scal to America multiple times before that. But with the devastation of the earthquake, they ended up saying okay, and they let him go to a family in Memphis who did good work to help him get through school and teach him English and everything else. Just an incredible story, but also just an incredible soul. He's a very, very sweet guy. Just absolutely salt of the earth, and like one of my favorite players that I've covered during my 15 years here in Sacramento. And so I'm super happy for him to get this call up.
The Scal Hive is here.
Yeah, totally. And again, I don't know if it will work out or not. I just know coming into the league, he was just...
I'm pretty committed to Scal being good based on my old takes, so yeah. I'm crossing my fingers, Doc.
Yeah, I mean, he was just a little soft as a player when he was coming into the league, and they didn't give him the opportunity that he probably deserved as he was a top 5 talent coming into his freshman season at Kentucky. By the end of it, he fell all the way to like 28, 29 in the draft, where the Kings took him as, that was one of 3 draft picks that year.
October of 2017 was when I said by 2019 he'd be their best player. In February of 2018, 6 months later, not even 6 months later, 4 months later, I think Scal has the potential to be the Kings' best player in 3 years. So now we're up to 2021. We're just kicking that can down the road. He's a big Scal guy.
Hey, he won a game with a 3-point shot against the Knicks.
Talking about how Scal and Giles might be able to provide spacing. Love this. This is good.
Yeah.
Scal Lathrissiere is something I tweeted.
Yeah. I told Kyle earlier, he invited me and Mark Spears to go to Haiti with him the first time he was heading back to Haiti. And it ended up the trip got canceled because of security issues and Scal changing his representation. But it would have been a heck of a trip.
Yeah, man, that would have been a pretty incredible story. Bummed that one didn't pan out. Some good news for the Kings over the weekend. They swept the Rockets on Saturday.
Yep.
They're up to 9th in the standings. But the bigger deal is that they're a half game back of the 6, 7, and 8 seeds.
It's wild.
And they're tied for the 10th seed. So they're tied for 10, but tied for 6th with the win tonight.
The West just keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter at the bottom. Like, it's absolutely crazy to have 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 all separated by a half game.
Ridiculous.
Wild.
All right. You know what else is ridiculous is the fact that I can't win on Underdog. It's super easy. Underdog Daily Fantasy, they're a pick'em game. You pick 2 or more players, you pick higher or lower. You think at some point I'd watch enough basketball to get a W in here. No dice. I got one the other night. I've lost a couple of lineups since then, but I'm back on the horse tonight. All you got to do is download the Underdog app to play along. You pick 2 or more players. You pick higher or lower. You can win up to 1,000 times your money. You already know how it goes. People have won. Millions of fans have already won billions on Underdog. So Here's what I'm rocking with tonight. I'm mixing and matching because there's the Kings-Mavs game, which is huge. But then that Warriors-Hornets game is going to matter a ton for the Kings. So I'm mixing and matching those two games in my lineup. One, I'm going Steph Curry lower than 5.5 3-pointers made. He's 37 in 11 days. He's been scorching hot from three. At some point, he's going to have a game where he goes like 3 of 12.
Never.
It's going to happen.
Never bet against Steph.
He's going to have 6 threes in the first quarter. Watch this. Kyrie Irving, I'm going lower than 29.5 points. I think I don't know that the Mavs have enough offensive threats that the Kings can't just throw the kitchen sink at Kyrie and turn him into a playmaker. I still think he gets 25, 26. I don't think he gets to 30. LaMelo Ball, I'm going higher than 23.5 points for Charlotte. I just don't think Golden State has anybody who can really defend a player like LaMelo, especially when he's going to take most of the shots. And then Malik Monk, I'm going higher than 6.5 assists. I love having the Malik assist number. And with no Domas, I think a lot of the playmaking onus is going to be on Malik. And I know a lot of his assists go to Domas, but I think he's going to take that onus on himself to distribute and get his guys open shots. So I'm going Malik Monk higher than 6.5 assists. Would love for you to play along. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code KyleM to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code KyleM. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Call void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. We have a ton of Kings basketball to get into. They have a huge game tonight. But before we can do that, the 49ers traded a major piece of their receiving core over the weekend, and we got to talk about it. That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. We're the Insiders, sponsored by Jiffy Lube. It's ESPN 1320 and Sacramento Sports Leader. And then did you stop your recording? Nice, dude. And then just hit your marker. Just make sure you didn't grab any of the commercial. And then just hit your marker and you're good.
Hey, mute us for 1 second. And we're back.
We have never been more back than this. Dude, that was crazy. That was one of those ones because the Kings game was on at the same time. And so I was just following along on the ESPN app on the Warriors score. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, this has got to be a mistake.
The Quentin Grimes?
Yeah. It's like Quentin Grimes got 28 in the first half. What the hell?
He's a bucket.
Dude, I love Quentin Grimes, man. I just didn't think he was going to go for 40 points.
What Dallas was thinking. That's another one where you're just shaking your head at Dallas and like, what? You got him for cheap.
And then just gave him away.
And then you just gave him away.
That didn't make sense.
Let's see. Jim asked if Scal is still soft. No, I don't think so. I mean, like, look, Scal is he's a small forward in a center's body. So, I mean, his game his jump shot is absolutely gorgeous. He always looked like a player that would be better further away from the basket. But,
man, it's like you're reading my tweets from 2017.
Yeah. Just like his personality-wise, he's just a very, very nice human being. So I could see him not coming across as not being aggressive. I remember the Kings would have Bob Thornton, Big Bob, with like an arm shield just beat on Scal while Scal was trying to score after practice. Like they were trying their best to teach him different things. And he's always a guy who doesn't have a lot of leg bend. So, he doesn't get down into a stance, but anyway. I told Kyle earlier, I didn't get to go on the trip. The Kings actually went with Scal with a cameraman, and they went to walk like down the street where Scal had lived, and it's just rubble still, some of it. And a neighbor came out, and it was one of the people who had sat there and dug with his dad for hours to save Scal and his mom and his brother. And they got it all on film, him running into this guy that helped them. It was absolutely spectacular.
That's really cool.
Benjamin, Jaeger, you have to understand, like year one of Jaeger, he had like an entire veteran team, right? By year two, he had 9 first and second year players. And so someone was going to get lost. And to be honest with you, a lot of them got lost along the way.
Yeah, I kind of think the Lakers are good.
Did you get that text from Joe?
Sure.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320. Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
James there, I'm Kyle. Got a ton of Kings to get to, and we will, and just some other stuff going on, because this is now, we're at the point of the year, March, or 20-ish games left, and we're at the point of the year where we have to follow the Kings and then like the 7 other teams around them.
Yeah.
I'm done. I've decided. I made this decision today when I was putting our show together. I decided that I'm out on the Suns and the Blazers.
Okay.
I'm done looking backwards. If the Kings lose 5 in a row, then yeah, sure, we can look what's going on behind them.
Mm-hmm.
But given that with a win tonight, they can be tied for 6th, I'm done looking backward.
Okay.
But so much of what we're going to look at is like, okay, what did the Kings do? But then also, what did Minnesota do? What did Dallas do? What did the Warriors do? What did the Clippers do? What did the Rockets do?
Yeah, even the Rockets, you got to throw them in there at this point.
I'm giving it a second. I need the Kings to get up into 6 first.
Yeah.
Before I want them to see if they can catch Rockets. But anyways, but then we also have to figure out what's going on at the top of the West. Because, okay, the Thunder are 1. So if the Kings are the 8th seed, they'll play the Thunder. And that's just what the Lakers are now in second at like 10.5 games back. So that's happening. What's going on at 2 and 3, though? There's a really good chance the Kings are the 7 seed, which they'd play the 2. But if they get up to 6, okay, now they're playing the 3 in that first round matchup. So we got to pay attention to that too. And we'll, of course, be doing that right here on the Insiders. But Deebo Samuel got traded over the weekend.
Absolutely crazy. I mean, we knew it was coming, but
yeah, dude. So I had some people reach out who are not fans of the 49ers and aren't locked in, and they're like, "That's so crazy they traded Deebo." And if you missed it, Deebo Samuel's going to Washington, and the 49ers are getting a 5th round pick. The 49ers will eat $31.5 million this year, which they were going to do regardless.
Yeah,
it would have been, I think, $47 million if he had been on the roster. So he had requested a trade. Here's the deal, because a bunch of people reached out and were like, "What? I can't believe they traded him." I couldn't believe they got anything for him.
They were able to create a market for him. It sort of seemed like they were able to create a market where there were multiple teams
apparently
that were looking at Deebo, and so in that situation, you were able to make a move where you were able to get more than what you thought you would get.
Yeah.
Like I thought there was an outside chance maybe they'd be able to get a 4th round pick, or maybe they were able to get 2 late round picks. But a 5th round pick, to me, like watching him play last year, I would not have given up a 5th round pick to get him on my roster.
Yeah. And that's what's so there's a bunch of layers to this. He asked out.
Yep.
He didn't want to play for the 49ers anymore. And that's fine. Like that's understandable. The Niners were gonna cut him if they didn't trade him, and it's not like good. His contract wound up being a disaster for the Niners because he had that awesome 2021 year, and then he was pretty good in 22. He was okay, and same in 23, and then last year was just a mess, and they put themselves in this position where they have to eat all this money while getting rid of him. But he was gone anyway, so getting a fifth is like, okay, in a vacuum, in a spot where you were going to get rid of a player for nothing to get a pick, in a top 150 pick in a round of the draft where you did not have a pick. That's okay. That's
a
nice little off-season, a very small W in what is a bad situation with his contract. I thought he was done being effective with the 49ers. And I came out of last year looking at him in the offense and going, they have to get away from this Debo-centric offense.
Yeah.
Teams just, because it used to be when Debo goes in motion, teams are in chaos. Defenses are in chaos. When he gets a ball in his hands, it's chaos. That wasn't the case anymore. So they couldn't manipulate defenses the same way. And the offense, I think, just didn't quite work the same. So, and he's not good enough where you can just split him out and be like, yeah, hey, go win one-on-one and we're going to get you the ball. That's not him. That's not his game. So I think this is also nice for the Niners to get anything for him. But I think this is a great landing spot for Debo too.
Oh, I agree.
There's
100%.
Really good chance he goes to Washington and cooks with a running quarterback like Jaden Daniels, where, okay, now you can create some of the space that the 49ers couldn't. You can create some of that space and give him some of those advantages where he's, in the open field one-on-one. You like Debo to win that matchup. With the ball in his hands.
I told you during the playoffs that like Washington has a very like distinct issue. They don't have like a third down back. They don't have somebody who can mix it up. Either they have like a road grader as a running back, or they have their quarterback. But it felt like they were missing this ingredient. And, again, like Austin Eckler, he's just not the same player he was before.
Yeah, he's okay. But
and even if he is, he's more of a like get between the tackles type of guy. And just, like they didn't. Yeah, they didn't have a lot of variable in what they were doing. You could see that they're limited just in personnel. And I think Debo, like if he bounces back, he can have that effect. And I think a player who gets traded after a long run with, like sort of a dynasty-esque team like the 49ers have been, once they get traded, it's usually like, hey, get in the best shape of your life, trim down, like get ready for a big breakout season, show everybody you're not done, and go get your next big contract. So I expect him to have like a really nice bounce back season. I just think I'm in the same page with you. Like he had run his course here with the 49ers, and there was very little, I don't know, like he just wasn't a real threat anymore.
Yeah.
And
the same guy.
I didn't blame the 49ers for going away from him. But now you need to find more than even finding, you need to put faith in somebody else to do those things, because that's my biggest issue with Kyle Shanahan. It's not that he doesn't have the players sometimes. A lot of times is he never actually empowers those players to take that next step. And hopefully they're able to find the next guy.
So that's the other interest. First of all, we need a word for whatever the 49ers were. Because you said dynasty-esque, because dynasty is like the Chiefs. Like you got to win a bunch.
Well, yeah,
to reach out. But they never won a super, like dynasty. Like they were, I don't know what to call it, because they kept falling short.
I don't want to just call them the Bills, because they didn't go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
All those times.
They had a nice little 5-year run. 19, 20, 20.
But it was like
six season run.
A 6-year run where how many NFC championship games and how many Super Bowls did they go to?
Was 2 Super Bowls and 3 NFC title games in 5 years.
Okay.
4 NFC title. Yeah, 4. Yeah, 19, 21, 22, 23. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really good run.
Yeah. Yeah, we just need a word for it.
Yeah, and it's funny because like with the Kings, we have like the golden era of Kings basketball, which is 1998 to 2006, right? They don't have another era.
Yeah.
They just don't.
Yeah.
So with the Niners, there are so many eras of greatness that this one doesn't really stack up.
Yeah.
It doesn't stack up against the 84 to 89 or the 81 to 89 era, or
really to 94.
Yeah, but
Nevertheless,
you switch coaches and
Sure.
your quarterback was different.
yeah.
There were some differences.
Yeah. So that's 100% correct. But then there are like 28 teams that would gladly switch places with the Niners since
Oh,
2019.
heck yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't think they can replace Debo. Like that's one of the things that has come out of this is the conversation is like, oh, how do you replace him? It's like, you don't. He's such a unique player. Every team since 2019, every team since 2019 has been like, oh, we need a player like Debo. This kind of do everything running back. And I know 2021 was when he really took off, but 2019, his rookie year, he was very good too. I think he set the rushing record for a wide receiver in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure that happened in 2019. So it's like everybody's been kind of looking for, and you've seen guys like Laviska Shenault was supposed to be the next Debo. Who was the guy in the draft in the draft this year? I can't.
Even Xavier Worthy is supposed to be a Debo-esque player.
Yeah. There was a guy in the draft this year though that a bunch of analysts were like, everybody's been looking for the next Debo, but this guy is it, and he wasn't, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. I think the Jets drafted him. Malachi Corley? That sounds right. Anyways, doesn't matter. So it's like, you don't replace him. You're not going to. He's the most unique player, or was the most unique player in the sport. He had 1,400 receiving yards and 365 rushing yards.
Yeah, that's wild.
As a receiver. Like, that's crazy. So I don't think you replace him. I think you need another receiver. But I think if the 49ers go out this offseason and go, hey, we need to reintegrate that playmaking ability into our offense, I think it's going to fail. Because I don't think there's another player who's going to be able to replicate what Debo did.
No, and if there is for them, I think it would be to put Mason or Guerendo in the backfield and use Christian McCaffrey in that role, split him out and run the plays through him like that.
Yeah.
And look, one of the problems that you have is when you build a team that has specialty players that become extremely unique, is that there's no way to replace them. And it's the same issue that the Kings have had over the last couple of years with someone like Domantas Sabonis. Like, Domantas is so specific and so good at what he does that the only other player like him in the league keeps winning the MVP every year. And so there's really no way to replace what he does. You have to be a completely different team when he steps off the floor. And it's impossible for the Kings to replicate what they do with Sabonis on the floor versus what they do with Sabonis off the floor. And I think it's the same thing with the Niners. Like, when you go out and you find specific players who become, and I would say McCaffrey is very similar in that he's so much different than every other running back in the league. It's very difficult to replace what he does. And it doesn't matter how many yards Mason or Guerendo had. It doesn't matter. Like, you're not McCaffrey. You don't put the fear of Jesus in everybody like McCaffrey does.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing. Like, we'll see the Kings move on with Valanciunas as their starting center for the next couple of games because Sabonis is hurt. But replicating who they were is going to be very difficult. The one saving grace is that this is a newer roster, and that if this happened last season, or if it happened in the first half of the season, you'd probably be in a lot worse position than you are today. Yeah. And it's just kind of the way when you switch out a bunch of pieces.
Last thing on this, because this gets into a little bit broader conversation. I really want to get back to basketball here, but Jim, I apologize if I mispronounce your name, but I'm going to do my best. Jim Thurlkill? Thurlkill?
Yeah.
Says in the chatty house at youtube.com/ESPN1320. He said, the question is, has Kyle run his course with the Niners? He's stubborn and his stuff is getting old. I think that's a fine question. As you know, I've stood in front of Kyle Shanahan for a lot of the last several years, but this is a year where that question becomes very relevant. Because I do think that the league is kind of caught up to what the 49ers have been doing, but that's what Kyle Shanahan's always been really good at. That's why he's been a special offensive coach, is finding the next thing.
Yeah.
Is not following the trends of the league, but finding that next thing that, okay, here's how defenses have adapted to what modern offense looks like. Here's my zag. Here's what everybody's thinking. Where's my zag? And for a while that was, hey, defenses are getting spread more horizontal. They're getting lighter. It's more defensive back. So what we're going to do is we're going to go a fullback. We're going to get big and we're just going to run downhill. We're going to play this kind of old school style of football. Well, it's not quite working anymore. So what's the next adaptation? So that's where I think Jim brings up a good point. I'm not ready to go, oh, Kyle Shanahan's done. He's cooked. He doesn't know how to do offense anymore. I don't think that'll ever necessarily be the case. But does he have that next adaptation of whatever spin-off of this version of his offense? Does he have that next adaptation that's ready to combat modern defenses in a way that they're just not quite ready to stop yet?
Yeah, and I think if you look at the way that the 49ers have morphed over the last couple of years, Kyle has very much changed who he is as a coach.
Yeah.
Like, they still do the zone blocking scheme, right, that they always had, but you've also seen him go to a one-back situation with McCaffrey, as opposed to the standard Shanahan brand, whether it was his dad or whether it was him, who just run 2 or 3 running backs the whole game, and you get so frustrated as a fantasy football player because you never know who's going to be good and who's not. You know, he added the Debo element that we had not really seen in his other stops.
Wow.
Like, these are things that he has, really adjusted.
Yep.
But he has to continue to get better and change who he is. And to be honest with you, it's why I think the brilliance of Andy Reid. Andy Reid is so creative, but he just keeps coming up with new wrinkles. And part of it's because he's got, Mahomes, who can do these things. But the thing that makes the Chiefs so tough to pin down is that you just don't know what Andy Reid's going to throw at you next. And that's why they keep making it deep.
And I think that's
playoffs.
And I think that's the case for Jim's Steve Spagnuolo too.
Yeah.
Is defensively, you're just never quite sure what he's going to throw at you. And that's what, to that point, it's like just always kind of at least half a step ahead.
Yeah.
There's one little thing that's different. One little thing they're not ready for. And that can be the difference between winning and losing a Super Bowl. All right. We'll have plenty more Niners talk coming up here in the next few days. 9 days from today. So about a week and a half, little less than a week and a half. The free agency legal negotiating window opens in the NFL, and we will have that all covered for you right here on ESPN 1320. A little bit of news from Andrew Marchand, who covers media for The Athletic, covers sports media for The Athletic. Jimmy Johnson on the Colin Cowherd show announced his retirement.
What?
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson, former Cowboys, University of Miami coaching legend, who has been, he's been on the Fox pregame, postgame panel for
20, 25 years.
As long as I remember watching football.
Yeah.
He is announcing his retirement. And that's interesting because watching him this year, I kept going, man, he's got to be getting close. He started
to lose his fastball, and I'm glad that he's stepping away when he wants to, as opposed to just, keep pushing and keep trying to go. Yeah.
Yeah. There's another person on that panel that should take a hint.
Yeah. No, I would agree.
Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah. In case we were wondering.
Speaking of losing a fastball. No, man, love those guys. It's just one of the Fox pregame show. I'm not locked in. Like, man, this is must-see TV. I've got to see what the guys on Fox have to say. But on a Sunday morning when I'm up making breakfast, making coffee, doing stuff around the house before football starts, having that on in the background and having those voices on in the background, Terry Bradshaw, it was Kurt Menefee for a long time, Jimmy Johnson, of course, like all those guys, Howie Long. Hearing those guys, it just is like part of your Sunday, part of your fall, part of your winter. So salute to Jimmy Johnson on a remarkable career. He is retiring from football analysis. And I don't think he's going back into coaching.
No.
I think he's just done.
I'm guessing not.
Football. All right. And we're done talking football for today. The Kings have a massive, massive game tonight. Every game down the stretch is big, but this one is particularly large, and we'll tell you why. He's James. I'm Kyle. We're the Insider, sponsored by Jiffy Lube. It's ESPN 1320. Joe Brazil's behind the glass, and he's going to send us a break.
I started something earlier.
Hey, Joe, you have the rundown, right?
Yes, sir.
So we'll do Kings Mavs here.
Cool.
And that'll just be this whole segment.
Sweet. Sounds good. I actually ran the rejoin hotkey. I just didn't have it in program 3. So they did hear twice the James Ham and Kyle Madsen show.
That's funny.
It's all good, though. I'll make sure it's in there this time.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah, there's always a big man's camp. It's the Pete Newell big man's camp.
Dude.
I also like this isn't true. Like, did Dave drink? Yes, but there was not like that was overstated. Greatly overstated. He had a lot of personal issues when he was here in Sacramento. But his last season and a half, I don't think he hardly drank at all, if at all. There we go.
Chatty House, anyone go to the Deftones concert at Golden One on Saturday? I know they're pretty popular around here. I was out there. It was fun. And Chino, the lead singer, was asking about the beam. There was a Deftones beam, so that was pretty cool.
Spectacular. Chris Ochoa, I did not see Scott Pollard's stuff at Kansas, but Scott Pollard just turned 1 year since his heart transplant.
Wow.
If you guys remember, we literally had Scott Pollard here on the show, on video.
From his hospital bed.
3 days after having heart transplant surgery. Probably the craziest thing that we've ever done.
It's not even close for me.
Absolutely crazy. Wires coming out of his chest. Yeah.
I was gonna. What was I? I thought I saw something in the chat that I wanted to get to, but I can't remember what it was. Son of a biscuit.
Scooter, I think Scott had he had to go in for the 1 year, like they do a bunch of battery tests at the 1 year mark, and he might have stayed in the hospital for a day or two. He's doing pretty well, it appears. So I would give him a follow on either X or he also on Facebook. He does a every Tuesday he talks about he calls it Transplant Tuesday. And he talks about, some of the trials and tribulations of transplants, but also about being a donor and how much that has meant to him and his family.
Has anyone watched the show All the Light We Cannot See? Because I read the book first. Amazing book. Incredible. If you're a reader, that's way up on my list of recommendations. Watch the show. Big thumbs down for me.
Yeah.
Watch the show first if you want to watch it, because the show in a vacuum wasn't bad.
Okay.
But the characters in the book are supposed to be children. And the actors who play them in the show are 30.
Yeah.
And it throws me out of the whole thing. And the story's a lot different in the show, but
it's interesting. Usually I like watching the movie and then reading the book a lot of the times, because then I don't have to picture the characters in my head.
Oh, interesting.
I just see their faces.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely had a vision of what I thought the characters looked like, and it was not. It really threw me off. That's
now,
James.
Back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
That's James. I'm Kyle. Kings Mavs tonight down in Dallas. This is a huge game for Sacramento.
Totally agree.
If they win and Golden State loses, the Kings are tied for the 6th seed. Is that right?
Yep.
If they lose, if the Kings lose, they go back to 10th.
Like, this is going to be so wild for the next, what are we down to? 24 games, 23 games?
Yes.
It's
This is how it's going to go. Buckle up, everyone. It's going to be they win 3 in a row. Oh my God, they're in the 6th seed. They lose 2. Oh my God, they're back to 10.
yes.
That's very likely how this is going to go down the stretch. But it's not just that. It's that typically when we've been doing our scoreboard watching, which we're doing a lot of lately, the Mavericks are always in it. The Mavericks are always a team that we're like, okay, hey, what are the Mavs doing tonight? Because they are tied with the Kings in the standings. They are 32 and 29. The Kings come in at 31 and 28. Kings favored by 2.5 tonight, by the way.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
So I'll start with Dallas because I want to get to where the Kings are too. I think this is a really important game for the Kings, not only because you can jump up and be tied for the number 6 seed, but also it feels like Dallas is teetering a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Injuries have hit them hard.
Yeah, really bad. And we'll get to the injuries here in a second. But they won 5 out of 6. Luka trade happens. It's a cluster, but they win 5 out of 6.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, they've lost 3 out of 4. They got blown out by Golden State. They lost to the Lakers. They snuck past Charlotte. And then they got blown out by Milwaukee.
Oof.
This is a team that is hanging on for dear life, waiting for reinforcements. PJ Washington, let's get to the injury report right now. Here's who's out for the Mavs tonight. Anthony Davis, out. Derek Lively, out. Daniel Gafford, out. PJ Washington, out. Caleb Martin, out. Like, they're just holding on for dear life right now, but they've lost 3 out of 4. And this feels like a spot to me where if the Kings can get a dominant win where they kind of control the game, I feel like Dallas is teetering. And I don't want to call it a knockout blow, but you can knock them down tonight, I think, if you go in and dominate that game and show, like, look, you're the 10 seed, you're down there. We're going this way. You deal with the Suns and stuff.
I think it's interesting, Kyle. We look at strength of schedule all the time, right? It's something that you can focus on because, it's a good indicator of what's ahead. The Phoenix Suns have the most ridiculous strength of schedule left I've ever seen. They have a 584 win percentage against.
Oh my God.
And their final 22 games, a 584. They only have 3 games that are considered easy opponents, and they play the Spurs once, the Bulls once, and the Raptors once. Outside of that, their schedule is absolutely brutal. They still have the Cavs. They still have OKC. They still have Boston twice. They have the Knicks. They have Denver. They've got Memphis. They to climb back into this thing is nearly impossible, right?
They're real quick. Their strength of schedule averages out to playing a 48-win team every night.
Every night.
So the 22-23 Kings, they got to play them every night, basically.
It's absolutely crazy. So the Kings are second. They have a 557 win percentage against. Jesus. And look, a 557 is really tough, but we also know that there are games, they play the Cavs twice. They play Boston. They still have a game against the Knicks. They still have 2 against OKC. And 1 against OKC, 2 against the Nuggets. So the Kings schedule is very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. But then you have Dallas, who's all the way down at number 14 at a 503 win percentage against. But this is one situation where I don't think strength of schedule matters at all.
Nope.
Dallas they're in a death fall. Mm-hmm. And whether they can pull out of it or not, I don't know. But they have so many injured players, and they traded their franchise player, and they're trying to adapt on the fly. And it's like, how far can Kyrie Irving carry you on his own back? Like how far can he carry you? Because it's him and not a whole lot else. Whether, I don't want to be disrespectful to Clay or anyone else on that roster, but it really has been, how far can Kyrie carry you? And this is a team that this is such an important game for the Kings. If ever there were like a must win with 23 games left in the season, this is fully it, because it does not get any easier from here. And the Kings know that. But this is a game that against a team that is stumbling, just like the Rockets were stumbling and having a bit of a downturn. Mm-hmm. This is another game against a team that just, they're not there, and you've got to punish them.
Yep, big time. As for the Kings, so far so good in this 11-game stretch out of the break. They're 3-1. They've won 3 in a row. They lost that opener to Golden State after the break, and it looked like, okay, this isn't great. But then they got the 2 wins they needed to get against Charlotte and against Utah. And then I was just super impressed on Saturday, especially with Sabonis going down, the Kings playing as well as they did, and falling behind in that game where they get out to that early lead, and when they fell behind, I kind of thought, oh man, wheels might come off here.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't. Just kept punching.
Yeah, they looked really good.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was one of their better wins that we've seen over the last couple of, like, the last month or so, where they just went in against a team that, they had a few injury issues, and they, Houston had a few things wrong with them, and they're just trying to integrate Fred VanVleet back in, and he was absolutely horrible. But the rest of the team I thought was really good, and to have the Kings sit there and battle through, super, super impressive win.
I'm going to withhold my comments on Dylan Brooks because we're on the radio.
Mm.
Starters for tonight for the Kings, Malik Monk, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, and I would be shocked if Jonas Valanciunas doesn't start. For the Mavs, I'm guessing it'll look like Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Max Christie, Najee Marshall, and Moses Brown.
Mm-hmm.
That's my guess.
Yeah,
With
Moses
no PJ
Brown
Washington.
is rough.
Not a great player.
No.
Not he was on the Blazers, I think.
Yeah, he's been on a bunch of teams.
Run around against
OKC. He was on OKC.
And not an awesome player. Kings injury report, just Domantas Sabonis. He's out with what the team lists on the injury report is soreness in the hamstring.
It's a grade 1.
It doesn't say
hamstring.
strain. It says, just says soreness.
They may have updated that on this morning stuff, but they did press release it late last night that he has a grade 1 hamstring strain.
I have 2 matchups of the game.
Okay.
Kyrie Irving against the kitchen sink.
Yep.
I'm guessing it'll primarily be Keon. But if you just try and say, hey, Keon, go guard Kyrie on an island for 48 minutes, that I don't think that's going to work. You got to do some stuff to get the ball out of his hands. They've done a really good job of like trapping at half court and then just standing there and playing 3-on-4.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something they have to do tonight. But the other one, I'm going to flip this the other way. I think Klay Thompson is probably going to guard Keegan Murray. And if that's the case, I need aggressive Keegan. Excuse me.
Yeah, me too.
Like Jason Kidd, literally, he was asked the other night why Klay Thompson didn't play a bunch of minutes against the Bucks. Let me get the exact number for you here. Klay Thompson against Milwaukee the other night, a 15-point loss for Dallas, by the way. Klay Thompson only played 28.5 minutes. And when Jason Kidd got asked, hey, why didn't he play more minutes? He said, because we needed to get stops. That's a tough look for Klay right now.
Yeah, you have to attack Klay Thompson.
Yep, that's it.
And just stay with him. Like, he's not getting the same open looks that he did before. Like, that he did with the Warriors.
And he's not going to take you off the dribble.
No.
That's one I think you just throw DeMar on him and let him hang out.
Even if he does try to take you off the dribble, the way that Valanciunas just stands in the middle of the key and hits people, Klay Thompson wants no part of that.
Sure.
I don't think any of us want any part of that for Klay Thompson.
No, I don't think so. But yeah, whoever Klay guards, whether it's Malik Monk or Keegan Murray or Keon Ellis, whoever, you got to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
He's not playing great defense at this point. All right. Wanted to real quick. The only game tonight, we were talking about the standings a little bit earlier. The only game tonight that matters elsewhere for the Kings is Warriors Hornets. That's the only one I have my eye on. You can keep a little eye on the Rockets if you want, but I'm not there yet. I'm going baby steps.
Okay.
Can Charlotte swing an upset? There's 12.5-point dogs against the Warriors, who are coming off a game where they lost to the Sixers, who were 1-10 in February.
It's tough. I just don't know that Charlotte has anything for anybody at this point. Like, they can get hot and they can beat you, but at the same time, that's just not a very good team.
They're not.
Yeah, we can't keep hoping that Charlotte will help the Kings out, because they're not going to. It feels like they're just making the rounds and playing every team that the Kings are competing with. You're like, why is it Charlotte again?
So look, I would tend to agree with you, but I think I said the same thing about the Sixers. I said the exact same thing about the Sixers. And lo and behold, Quentin Grimes gets hot, and the Sixers knock off the Warriors. So maybe LaMelo gets hot. Maybe Miles Bridges gets hot. I don't know. That's the one other game I'm watching tonight.
I'm here for it.
I'm Kyle. He's James Ham. We're talking Kings Mavs here on ESPN 1320. How does Sacramento secure a 4th win in a row? We'll let you know. We got Keys to Victory coming up right here on ESPN 1320 at Sacramento Sports Center.
All right. Moses Brown is averaging 11.8 points and 7.8 rebounds per game in his 4 games with the Thunder. But he's a tall person who plays basketball, not a basketball player who happens to be tall. I always especially when Fox was on the Kings and his ability to get downhill and get to the rim.
Mm-hmm.
Moses Brown is all elbows and out of control and can knock somebody silly on accident. He's one of those guys.
Did you watch any of that Nuggets Celtics game yesterday?
I didn't.
DeAndre Jordan played minutes. I watched DeAndre Jordan stand with 1 foot in the paint or just outside the paint and not move. I saw the ball rotate to Peyton Pritchard in the corner. He puts the ball on the deck, gets past his defender. He's driving directly at DeAndre Jordan and gets a layup off past DeAndre Jordan, who was late to the shot.
Yeah.
On a straight line drive right at him.
Oh no.
It was a tough watch, dude. DeAndre Jordan used to be that dude. Like, you try and do a straight line drive at DeAndre Jordan in 2012, he's sending it to Narnia. And now he's just Peyton Pritchard.
Poor boy Sin told us that Moses Brown 10-day expired at least 4 times.
I think if you send it one more time, I think that would be effective.
At 5 times, Moses Brown might show up at your house like Beetlejuice.
This is Candyman.
Beetlejuice.
Wait, does anybody know if Moses Brown's 10-day expired?
I think I heard something about that. Let me check the chat real quick, actually.
Good question. Oh, good question here from Robbie.
Let me look at the NBA transactions to see if Moses Brown has been
because if Moses
a second 10-day contract.
No, the Knicks reclaimed him for their G League team.
The Knicks did?
Oh, never mind. Read that wrong.
Dallas.
He has not re-signed that 10-day.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he won't re-sign today.
I don't know what they're going to do if they don't.
They're going to get beat up by Jonas Valanciunas for sure.
You're going to start Dwight Powell? Is that what we're doing? Najee Marshall at the 5?
Kessler. Remember, they started Kessler Edwards at the 5.
Oh, God. He didn't even play in their last game.
I would be surprised if Moses Brown isn't re-signed. He's actually played pretty well for them.
Hour number 2, that's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. We're the Insiders. We're brought to you by Jiffy Lube. We're taking the afternoon, and then we will hand it off to D-Lo and KC, and they will take you up to 4 o'clock. James there. I'm Kyle. Jiffy Lube, omnipresent. They sponsor the program. The Kings looking for their 4th win in a row. And look, we talked about the importance of these 11 games coming out of the break.
Mm-hmm.
They're currently 4-1. Excuse me. 3-1 coming out of the break. We said, can you go 7-4? If you get to 4-1, you put yourself in a really, really good spot. Not to mention, you gain a little separation from the team that is currently in the number 10 seed, and you can just push them further toward the cliff that they appear to be towing right now. Like, of all the games, yeah, you want to beat Golden State because to hell with them, right? You got to beat Charlotte because they're terrible. You got to beat Utah because they're terrible. Houston, really nice win. Wasn't super sure the Kings would go in there and win that game, and they did. That was awesome. But this Dallas game, given the nature of the standings, given the nature of the games the Kings have coming up, this is one that, again, not a must-win, but this is a gotta have it.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have this one tonight.
This is such a huge game, Kyle. I don't even know how else to, like, when you have an opponent who is shaky, but who's in competition, direct competition with you for a playoff spot or a play-in spot, whatever we want to call it at this point. And you have an opportunity to not just like knock them down, but maybe knock them into where they're battling with the Suns and, you know, Portland and maybe the Spurs for that last play-in spot. You have an opportunity just to wipe them out.
Mm-hmm.
And also to catapult yourself into like a much bigger discussion of, are you a team that might be a 7, or can you get if you're in the play-in, can you host the first play-in game?
Sure.
You know, like these games matter, especially when the rest of the games on the Kings schedule are not very friendly.
Yep.
And so you got to go in there, and this should be like it's your most important game of the season. And every game from here on out, you got to think the same way.
Yep.
But this is a big one.
Let's get to keys to victory. James Ham, what is your first key? We'll have 3 each. If the Kings do these things, they'll win tonight. What is your first one?
Yeah, it's scoreboard watch. This is a team that, like, the best way to scoreboard watch is to watch the scoreboard that's above your head and say, this is a team I'm tied with for the 9th, 10th spot. I need to pummel this team. I need to move up the standings. And, you know, you can only do so much. The Kings need to be looking at the standings and at every single moment, because that's where they are in their season. And they have to respect their opponent, but they also have to find a way to push through against somebody who's beat up and not playing very well.
I wouldn't recommend literally watching the scoreboard. You got to play the game.
Yeah.
But maybe Jay Crowder. Maybe Jay Crowder can be the designated scoreboard watcher.
Yeah, Jay Crowder, Scalabicier, we need you guys to tell us what's happening. What's happening not only in this game, but in that other game with Golden
Warriors
State and
down
Charlotte.
6.
Warriors
4 minutes left, first
6.
half.
That's right. You have to respect the standings at this point.
No doubt.
And look at the loss column. The Kings win this game. They're 2 games up on Dallas in the loss column, and they have the season series.
Yeah. Number 1 for me, this is something we talked about a little bit last segment, but you got to switch up your looks on Kyrie Irving. He's really, really good at basketball.
Yep.
We established this. Most underrated player in the league, some people say. Listen to D'Lo and KC, noon to 4. He is one of those players who's just so individually brilliant that if you say, hey, Keon, go out there and guard Kyrie Irving for this entire game, at some point that's going to start not going well for you. And I think Keon can do a nice job, but you got to throw a double at him every now and then. Maybe throw Keegan at him every now and then. It can't just be let Kyrie figure out Keon Ellis and then go to work, because those are the type of games where Kyrie takes over late.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times with Kyrie Irving, it just doesn't matter how good your defense is, your individual defense. He's going to take and make tough shots.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start the game with Keegan on him. I'm going to go right to Keon Ellis, but I'm going to wall him off. I'm going to throw 2 people at him.
Yep.
I don't know that I like Valanciunas way out like what we've seen from Sabonis. Like,
doesn't quite move in space as well.
Yeah, shocking the ball handler. But I do think that there's a way to take away Kyrie in this game, or at least limit him. And like he can score 30. You just can't have like 3 other dudes go for 15 to 20, which is something the Kings have done in the past.
Yeah, so this is one of the things I'm kind of interested to see with if the Kings do tonight. Is we saw them do it against Golden State here at Golden One Center, not the last time they played, but the time before that, where they would just double Steph, make him get rid of the basketball, and then just continue standing there at the timeline with him. Mm-hmm. And just like, hey, you're not getting the ball back. We're going to play 3-on-4 because we don't think that a combination of Klay Thompson, Max Christie, Najee Marshall, and Dwight Powell or whoever their four are going to be can be as effective as Kyrie Irving with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
So now if Spencer Dinwiddie gets hot, or if Jaden Hardy gets hot, all right, then maybe you got to mix some things up. But anything you can do to not have Kyrie have the ball in his hands is a win for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 2.
Let Valanciunas cook.
Mm.
I think one of the things that we've seen from Valanciunas early in his Kings career is that he's just way bigger and stronger than everybody else on the court. And if you can feed him, you can find him, and you can get him in the pick and roll. Like, let him feel like he's Sabonis in this situation. And I think if you do that, if you let him get rolling, then the opposition has to adjust. He is not somebody that you can just leave. Not, again, like whether it's Moses Brown or whether it's Dwight Powell, whoever, they have players. Dallas has players that you can just leave and not really worry about. Valanciunas is not that. And he can dominate the glass in this game. He can get the putbacks that he's been averaging, that he's been, taking care of. But also, this is just a dude that if you get him involved, he has an opportunity to be one of your best players in a game. And so I would feed him.
Yeah, man, he's one of those guys when the ball's in his hands. It feels like good things happen.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, man. It can't just be 4-on-5 offensively and Valanciunas gets rebounds. Like you gotta keep him involved. I think that's a really good point. I'm gonna stay with the big man rotation for number 2 here. Need Trey Lyles to step up, man. He hasn't been awesome this year. I thought he had a nice little game on Saturday. It needs to be even better, where he's grabbing rebounds, playing at least solid defense, knocking down a couple of threes. Like Trey Lyles in this world without Domantas Sabonis for the next week or 2 or however long it is, Trey Lyles needs to be good. He needs to at the very minimum be playable, because every minute he plays is going to be big.
I agree, and Trey has kind of fallen out of the rotation as of late.
Yeah,
and he's going to get an opportunity to solidify himself. And let's be honest here, there's a good chance if the Kings do make the playoffs that Trey Lyles is going to play more than Valanciunas for stretches because of that, the ability to play small ball. And in the playoffs, a lot of second centers are played off the court. You need Trey Lyles to be good and to be effective and an efficient player. And you hope that he can find himself in this stretch. He's had plenty of time to play minimal minutes, and sort of like his body should be ready to roll for this. But you need him to, do something better than shoot 39.9% from the field like he has this season. He needs to get back up to, 45, 50% from the field over this stretch.
Yeah, he has to be significantly better than he's been this year over whatever stretch of games Domas is out. No doubt. Number 3.
Number 3 for me is Keon Ellis needs to play like pretty much the whole game. Like as soon as Kyrie steps on the floor after the opening, he needs to be defending Kyrie. And after him, I'd even give Markelle Fultz an opportunity to defend Kyrie a little bit.
Sure.
He's long, he's athletic, he can play defense. But you need to give as many looks to Kyrie as possible. And Keon Ellis is a guy who just jumps to the top of the list.
Yep. That little short, 4-minute rotation. That's what it's got to be. And then just match Kyrie's minutes with Keon's.
Yeah.
That's what I do in it. Unless Keegan starts off the game and is just outstanding, then maybe you adjust on the fly a little bit. But I'm right there with you, man. They're not going to start him. So get him into the game as quickly as you can.
Maybe they do start him. Maybe they match up lineups and go small ball and Keegan at the 5 and just maybe that's what they do. But
I would love that.
Just the way that I've seen, though.
I want that so bad.
Yeah, but Doug seems to appreciate the center that just goes out there and crushes everybody.
Yeah, he's trying to recreate the 0-2 Kings. So.
Yeah, I think Valanciunas is going to get the start and get a whole lot of minutes.
Number 3 for me, you got to get threes up.
Yep.
You beat the Rockets. You had 28 three-point attempts, but you lost the 3-point line by 12. Lost it 13-9. Is that right? Yeah, 4. Yeah, 12. Yeah. That again, really nice game against the Rockets. Is not to tear that down. That can't be the norm. They need something a lot closer to 40 in the modern NBA.
Yeah, I'm with you. 40 plus, and I know Doug talked about 50, but that's not realistic for this specific
28
team.
is crazy.
Yeah, 28's not nearly enough. I mean, I would like to see this team, unless they're being really efficient, but I'd like to see this team around 40, 42.
Yep. So something more than 28, please. You're going to need them tonight against Dallas. That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. We'll take a deep dive on this Kings-Mavs game tomorrow at 10 a.m. Hopefully talking about a Kings win on the Insiders right here on ESPN 1320. That is Sacramento's sports leader. Real quick. So the anniversary of Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game was yesterday. And I did not realize. So D'Lo and Casey have always done the thing of like, oh, hey, maybe Wilt's 100-point game isn't real. I thought that was a bit. I thought the sect of the internet that said, hey, Wilt didn't actually score 100. Where's the video? I thought that was like a birds aren't real thing where we were making up a fake conspiracy because there's no consequences to it. I thought I was in on the joke. It turns out that's a real thing. It turns out there are people who actually believe because there's no video. It was 1962.
Yeah.
They were playing in Hershey, Pennsylvania in a 7,000 seat ice hockey arena. Of course there was not video. What are we doing?
I don't know. It's like the moon landing. It's or Kyrie and his flat earth.
We can't. I don't want to dive into like the actual real world consequences of this, but there wasn't any video that would apply to like everything pre-19. What I don't want to say a year because I don't know when television was invented, but like surely when sports got big on TV and everything was on television, there's a lot of stuff that we don't have video of.
All of the 1980s basketball, almost all of it, all the Celtics and Lakers, all of it was tape delayed.
Right.
Like all of, like almost every single, even playoff games were tape delayed.
So
like the game had already happened when you
yes.
were watching it. So yeah, the late 80s, early 90s is when like everything starts being, but even still, like growing up, like they didn't play every single A's game on TV.
Sure.
And certainly every Kings game wasn't on TV for years. That's why, I grew up listening to Gary Gerald call the game.
Yeah.
Because that was the only way to know what was happening in the game that night, unless you stayed up for the 11 o'clock news, which may or may not have somebody there who can tell you what the final score was.
So Pablo Torre on his podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out, it's really good. Did a whole episode on this. And I don't want to do a recap of the podcast episode, but one of the angles that I thought was really interesting that gets beyond the whole like did this or did this not happen is the opposing center in that game was a guy named Daryl Imhoff. He fouled out after 20 minutes.
Okay.
The Knicks starting center was sick or something. So Daryl Imhoff had to start. And there's this interview with Daryl Imhoff from 2003 who basically confirms like, yeah, that dude scored 100 points, but he thinks it's fraudulent because he believes that basically the refs set out to get Wilt 100 points. And that the Knicks, or excuse me, the Warriors, who won that game by 22 points, and they were up big in the second half, just started feeding Wilt the ball. And the Knicks, in trying to not give up 100 points to one player, started running like a four corners offense. And so the Warriors started fouling up 20 late in the fourth quarter to get the ball back so they could get it to Wilt so he could either get fouled or score. And so that was Imhoff's whole deal was like, yeah, no, he scored 100 points, but like it wasn't a natural 100. He got a lot of soft calls. They played defense just to get him the ball on offense. They didn't pull their starters like you normally would. So I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. But this whole idea that Wilt didn't score 100 points is insane. And I thought we were joking.
Yeah.
I wrote it in my diary.
I'm on board. Again, when Kobe scored 82, they did the same thing. They just kept feeding Kobe after it was all, again, they won that game like 122 to 70 to 104. They won by 18 and Kobe ends up with 82.
Devin Booker, when he scored 70 or whatever it was the same deal.
81. That's what when David Robinson put up 70, it was because he was trying to pass Shaq in the scoring title. And they fed him the entire final game of the season. He ended up with like over 70 points. But it was very specific. So I don't know. Like if you had an opportunity to score 100, it's like, why not go for it? And that guy clearly fouled out and isn't in love with the fact that he was part of that. But
I'd be salty too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I don't hate it. But yeah. So anyways, I found out yesterday that the conspiracy theory is real. And I think it needs to go away because we'll definitely score 100. Whether it was a like natural 100 or whatever, we can talk about that, but it happened. Sorry, everybody. Anyways, he's James. I'm Kyle. We're the Insiders, sponsored by Jiffy Lube. Malik Monk is really struggling shooting the basketball right now. And I want to talk about why. That's James. I'm Kyle. We're the Insiders, sponsored by Jiffy Lube. Joe Brazil behind the glass on ESPN 1320 at Sacramento Sports Center. Joe, I will get used to looping you into the outro at some point. I'm not forgetting. I'm just not remembering.
It's okay. I'm not sitting back here upset, twisted by it.
It'd be super funny if you were.
And I'm like,
and
Joe right at the end.
Joe's here.
And Joe Brazil.
The final game of, what is this, the 1993-94 season, David Robinson went 26 of 41 for 71 points. No one else on his team scored more than 10. No one scored in double figures but him. No one else took more than 10 shots except for Terry Cummings, who went 2 for 10 and scored 5 points.
Oh, I watched Nosferatu this weekend.
Oh, yeah? What'd you think?
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Incredible film.
I went with the boys to go see it.
Yeah, I'm not. So my wife and I aren't horror movie people.
Yeah, we're not either.
But I had enough people who understand our movie sensibilities be like, yo, it's not like a ton of jump scares. It's not hella gory. It's unsettling. Like it's unnerving.
It's more like Bram Stoker's Dracula with Keanu and Winona Ryder.
I've never seen that, but sure. Okay. Like it's not, it doesn't, I really enjoyed it. It's just like, just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just a really incredible like movie watch, but yeah, anyways, just trying to tack on movies to my list.
I know we've been, we're going to watch Nora after it just cleaned house.
Yeah. That feels like it, like you gotta, right?
You do, but like Sean Cunningham has been talking about it on the pod forever. It's like Pretty Woman like cranked up to a 10, and maybe a bit too much. Like don't watch it with your in-laws and your parents.
Yeah.
It's risque.
Which one is that?
Nora.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Yeah, this is it. This is a great. Thank you, Nick. This articulates exactly that dread of like I hate everything that's happening, but like you're enthralled, versus I'm on edge because there's going to be a loud noise. Like,
yeah,
that's not fun for me.
No, it was good though. I thought it was really good.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then we also watched The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Oh, that's hilarious. I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed, like if you want something that you can just kind of like shut your brain off a little bit is, oh my goodness, why am I drawing a blank? The Fall Guy. The Fall Guy was a hoot. It's a good time.
Oh, we just watched that one.
Fall Guy is awesome.
Oh, it's a really fun movie.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, that and Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent have the same vibe for sure.
Oh, tonight on ESPN 1320, We have
Oh, yeah, we
Big,
got shooty hoops.
Big 12 men's basketball. Kansas at number 3 Houston.
Kenny Caraway just walked by, and I didn't get to see his whole outfit, but it has real like Hitman vibes for me. More like Kansas. My neighbor across the street, who I'm buddies with, went to KU, and is a huge Jayhawks guy. And talking to him about the Jayhawks this year has not been super fun. Because I don't follow college basketball that close. So I'm like, hey, how's it going? He's like, oh,
Not great.
Don't ask. My bad, Doc.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
Yeah, James, thank you for the reminder. I want to remind you all, or let you all know,
Y'all.
let all y'all know that while D'Lo and KC are taking you to 4 o'clock, that doesn't mean the programming stops on ESPN 1320.
Mm-hmm.
We're at college basketball tonight, 5:45 on your smart speaker and the free Odyssey app. Big 12 men's basketball, Kansas at number 3 Houston. Look, I know you're going to have brackets to fill out. I know you're going to be involved. Now's a good time to just get, you can get yourself a W like in a game on your bracket by watching or listening to a game one time.
Oh yeah.
I'm really bad at the college basketball bracket thing, the March Madness bracket thing, but I've gotten so many games right because I went, hey, I watched Texas A&M play twice this year, and they were really good both times. They're the 12 seed, but I'm going to take them. Just vibes, dude. It's all vibes. Tap in. Number 3 Houston against Kansas, 5:45 tonight, ESPN 1320. All right. We're having a little discussion before the show today that I wanted to bring on here.
Okay.
Because as I was putting my underdog lineup together, I said Malik Monk, 1.5 made threes, or excuse me, 2.5 made threes. That's kind of interesting. So I went and looked. Malik Monk since January 1st is attempting 6.9 threes per game, which is pretty nice. He's shooting 29.1% from 3 since January 1st.
It's not great.
So there's a couple different directions we can go here, but Monk every month this season has seen his 3-point percentage dip. And we've seen this before where he kind of has these ebbs and flows and these peaks and valleys. But by month, here are his 3-point percentages. And I'm not going to do the decimals because it's too many numbers. So I'm going to round. 36, 35, 34, 31, 27, 25. That's his field goal 3-point percentage by month.
That's a trend.
That's the wrong trend.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to necessarily get into like, oh my God, why can't Malik Monk make a 3 right now? I don't want to necessarily do that. But is he and should he be the very clear-cut number 3 offensive option for them?
Ooh.
Because like I know he's going to be the primary ball handler, and that's fine. But like I look at that game against Houston, where I think he took 13 shots. And then you had Levine at 16. And Levine at 16, DeRozan at 18, and then Malik down at 13. If the Kings are going to win consistently, do you think that's kind of where he needs to fall on this version of the Kings?
Maybe. I will tell you that I think that Malik is having a difficult time adapting to being the starting point guard. Like, he has not played as a starting point guard for a team before.
Boy, have I got the solution for you.
Yeah. So that's one issue, right? He's also dealing with the fact that his minutes have jumped from 26 minutes a game to 30, whatever. Like, whatever he's averaging as a starter are so much more than what he was averaging as a bench player. And it's something that, like, he's a player, like, historically, when you see his numbers dip, it comes after someone else gets injured and he starts playing a bunch more minutes. You know, so when his minutes go up, his shooting percentages drop very quickly.
What do you think it's just a matter of opportunity? Like his shot attempts go up, and so there's just that natural.
No, because his shot attempts stay relatively flatline. What happens is he's wearing himself out. And whatever the reason, like he will bounce back. He'll have a moment where he catches his breath and all of a sudden the shots start falling. But he hits like a veteran wall, not a rookie wall. He hits a wall. And the only way that you really see it is his shooting percentages, specifically from 3, take a dive. And I hope that I think it's one of those things that he needs to better prepare for being someone who's playing 36 minutes a night. And whether that's like recovery, whether it's like going and sitting in the cold tubs with Domas, or whether it's, taking days of practice where he's not working as hard or he's sitting, he needs to recover. And for what I've seen from him, he always has this lull where you can see he runs out of gas, and then his shooting percentages fade, and then he comes back out. He makes it back out the other side, but you got to hope that it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it needs to be like now. If there's a bounce back coming, it would be great to start now. But this is why, and real quick, I want to shout out a new listener, Chamran. I'm Guy on the Left. That's James Ham. Or Guy in the Hat is my nickname. That's what my friends call me. And that's James Ham. We're the Insiders. We're here every day, 10 to noon. So, Chamran, appreciate you. Shout out to you. That's why I wonder if like there's. I don't want to turn this into a Keon Ellis should start conversation. Okay. Because we've had that conversation. We know what that conversation is. We also know about primary ball handlers and this now. Like, okay, cool. We've all litigated that. Everybody, I think, kind of falls on whatever side of the fence they fall on there. That's what leads me to, hey, maybe Malik should do less then.
Okay.
If your theory is right, and man, he just runs out of gas because he's doing so much, like, okay, that's fine. But then shouldn't he be distributing and then hanging out, catch and shoot threes, pick and roll stuff with Sabonis? Like, there used to be this necessity when, and I think this gets back to what you were saying with him having a tougher time adjusting to his role as the lead point guard, the starting point guard, is when he came off the bench, it was just like, yep, you're the guy. You shoot it now. We need you to score.
Yep.
Because De'Aaron Fox isn't here. You're going to be the dude. So I wonder if that's where the adjustment is. It's like, dude, Malik, you're obviously a very talented scorer, but that's not your role here, especially when you're trying to fit in DeMar DeRozan, you're trying to fit in Zach LaVine. I think the best version of the Kings is one where if Malik is going to start, which it looks like he is, then he needs to be the very clear-cut, like, number 3 offensive option on the pecking order.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I'll just tell you, like, as a reserve, he averaged 26.7 minutes per game. He shot 46% from the field and 36% from 3. When he took the jump to a starter, he jumped 8 minutes, and so he's averaging 34.7, and he's shooting 43.5% from the field, and he's shooting 31% from 3 as a starter. Like, the numbers just show you, like, straight up that his best role is probably coming off the bench, but either that or he needs to do the work to become a full-time starter.
Yeah.
Because there's a big difference walking into a season thinking you're going to play 26, 27 minutes a night, and all of a sudden you're playing 35 minutes a night. And, like, physically, you need to do what it takes to be an NBA starter. And, like, I think that sometimes guys get, like, he doesn't know how to monitor his energy level throughout a game and throughout a season. That's something that, he needs to figure out. And it's not easy, but it's part of, like, being a pro and part of growing into a role. And we are seeing, like, the beginning phases of him as an NBA starting point guard. He needs to figure out what it takes physically to be out there for all of those games, for all of those minutes, because it's not easy. And we haven't even got to the point where he's being forced to play defense. Like, his minutes have gone way up, but just think if he was being asked to play the highest level defense the entire time, which he's not being asked to do.
Right.
They use a Keon Ellis, or they used a De'Aaron Fox to play alongside him. Even right now, you see when they go to the bench unit, sometimes it's him and Markelle Fultz, and Markelle Fultz is getting the toughest guard.
Right.
So we haven't got to the point where he's extending himself as far as like energy level on both ends of the court.
Yeah.
And
good
so,
point.
yeah, I mean, like, it's part of being a pro. Like, you got a big payday, and now you have an opportunity as a starter this offseason. You've got to, like,
you got to change the way you prepare.
Yeah, you fully have to change the way that you prepare for an NBA season.
It seems to me, and this is where, like, I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that, like, the coach or the GM is always right because they know the players better than we do. Like, they do, but that doesn't mean they're always correct. Right. But on the other hand, what I'm about to say is one of those things that seems really easy in my head because it seems like the simple solution here is what we just talked about. You bring Keon Ellis into the starting lineup and you put Malik Monk back on the bench. And that naturally goes to, okay, then who's handling the basketball?
Yep.
Which really valid. Because it can't just be Keon. Keon does not have the skill set to do what Malik Monk does with the basketball. Okay. But to me, the easy solution is you have Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan dribble the ball across half court and then throw it to Domantas Sabonis and let your offense run through Domantas Sabonis like it did a couple years ago. Different personnel, it's going to look a little bit different. But that to me is the like really easy solution. If Domas isn't going to be a primary scoring threat, which he's not, that's not his game, you can maximize him by putting him at the elbow and getting in the ball and then running your offense. That to me mitigates a lot of what you're losing by not having a primary ball handler with your starting group like Malik Monk.
Yeah, I mean, like, look,
I'm sure it's not that easy.
The Denver Nuggets have got away with it for the last 5 years. They don't have a true point guard. Jamal Murray is not a true point
Jamal
guard.
Murray's a shooting guard.
Yeah, Christian Brown is not, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, whoever, Brown, like whoever's
Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, okay, so when he plays with Russ, but even then, that experiment kind of ran its course, and they moved Russ back to the bench, right? And so they're playing him counter minutes of Jokic. Like, there is a way to do this, but there's, again, so many changes that have happened over the last couple of years. So, it's intriguing. You need to figure out better balance and all that stuff. And I would love to see the ball run through Sabonis as much as possible. But, of course, he's going to be out for the next 3 or 4 games, and we'll have to see what they look like without him.
Just to put some respect on our guy, Russ, he is still starting.
Oh, is he?
Yep.
Well, I thought he had gone to the bench for a little bit.
No, he started against Boston, 12 points, 6 assists, couple steals, a block.
Okay.
Look at him go. 3 rebounds. Airballed a huge 3.
Can't imagine that.
Cashed a big 3, and then later in the game, airballed one. It was tough. But no,
of course.
He and Jokic have a really nice, 2 really high IQ players. Have a really nice little 2-man game. But to your point, before Russell Westbrook was on the team, and frankly, Russ is in his mid-30s now. He's not the player that he was.
No.
It's just get the ball to Jokic and let him cook. But again, different personnel, different teams. I get it. It's not as easy as. Plus, there's the ego management of sending somebody to the bench. I totally understand. It's not like, oh, snap your fingers, just do this. Why not? And frankly, they've won 3 in a row. If they win tonight and make it 4 in a row,
yeah,
like that's so. Again, I'm just kind of trying to bigger picture discussion.
I'd even add in too. As a starter, you're required to play just like more minutes in general, right? Yeah. Malik Monk on 0 days rest, so the back-to-backs of the world, right? Shoots 37.9% from the field and 27% from 3 on second night of a back-to-back with 0 days rest. You give him 1 day rest, his shooting percentage jumps to 45.7 and 34.4. So like 7% higher from 3 and 7% higher from the field, 8% higher from the field. Like,
that's crazy.
He needs to look at these numbers and understand, what it's going to take for him to be a full-time starter.
916-909-1320, 916-909-1320. That's the Elk Grove Kia talk line if you would like to join the show, and Steve would like to join the show. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, real quick. I hear the numbers that you talked about when you said Malik. And yeah, I'm hoping Doug is gonna, or somebody, some kind of trainer is gonna talk to him about that, his minutes. And I'm really hoping they zero in on the turnovers. I mean, some of his turnovers, he had that issue when he was, I think, with the Hornets, when Jordan owned the team. If I'm speaking correctly, if not, my bad. But when he was with Jordan used to get on him all the time about his decision making. And I thought he got better when he went to the Lakers. And then he came to us. So sometimes his decision making is like weak. I'm like, dude, for real. Yeah. Although, and then going back to Domas. Okay, I like you guys. I know that's not his game, but real talk, homeboy need to be hella more aggressive around the rim. I like the new dude coming in. I can't pronounce his name.
Valanciunas.
We gotta call him JV.
Yeah, JV works.
Right. So I love it because he's aggressive. He ain't no punk. We need that, and I wish Domas would take a page out of his book, So I like it when I'm sorry Domas got hurt, but I liked it when JB came out there and he did his thing because you really got to see what he brings to the table. He does make other teams back up. They got to respect his game. So anyhow, that's all I'm saying. I'm hoping Doug sees all of that because the squad can compete. But I think Domas slows the game down too much because he likes to hold the ball. And defenders know he's not going to shoot, and they know he can't dribble. So they take his lunch money all the time. We all see it. All right, I'm out.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, I don't
Domas can dribble.
Yeah, I don't hate the take that he needs to be more aggressive. Like we've talked about that for the last year and a half. But I don't think it's necessarily a matter of getting the ball in the wing and let him, he doesn't have an offensive bag like that. That's just not the player he is.
Yeah, and I think
you don't ask Steph Curry to go hang out in the post,
Yeah, the other thing is that teams defend, specific teams in the league defend Domas where they collapse the lane on him to try to swipe the ball out of his hands. So it's not that he can't dribble because the guy can go behind his back and between his legs and spin move as he brings the ball up the court at 6'11". So that's not the problem is in tight space, teams are collapsing the lane. He needs to be quicker to get the ball to the perimeter shooters.
Yeah, he has to. That's an adjustment he needs to make this offseason for sure.
Yeah.
Because if that's the book, there's you can create a lot of open shots if teams are just going to collapse every time he gets the ball in the paint.
And to his other point, just so you know,
take by Steve.
Malik Monk as a starter is averaging almost 2.8 turnovers per game.
Yeah.
As a reserve, a little over 1.
Yeah. So here was his. So I went and looked. Rookie year only played 14 minutes a game, 0.8 turnovers a game, then 1.2, 1.4, 1.3. Then he's career high in turnovers per game every year since 1.6 with the Lakers, 1.9 in year one with the Kings, 2.1 last year with the Kings, 2.4 this year with the Kings.
His role's changed.
Yeah.
He's getting a lot more pick and roll, but he does make mistakes.
But to that, yeah, the same way we're talking about, there's an adjustment for Domas to make when defenses collapse, getting rid of the ball earlier. That's something that Malik has to fix. No doubt. As good as I think Malik is and as important as I think he is, some of the decision making for sure, like Steve, our caller, just said, but then B, we've talked about it, just like pass accuracy. Just get the ball where it needs to go. On time, on target.
That's what Doug keeps saying. On time, on target.
Yeah, man.
Pass off of 2 feet. He keeps saying that. Stay on 2 feet.
Yep.
Don't start doing, and that's where Malik gets in trouble.
Yeah. For sure. All right, that's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. The handoff, one of D'Lo or KC is coming in. I see D'Lo getting ready. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be a surprise. D'Lo and KC coming up next. But first, the handoff with me and James Ham. We're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. Joe Brazil also here. He's going to jump through the glass and fight me on ESPN 1320 Sacramento Sports Center. Oh, we got to give stuff away after the break. Don't let me forget to give stuff away. That's Joe. That's something I want you to start doing. We'll talk about it each day. Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
The guy on my screen right now on basketball, it's I think it's a Dodgers podcaster.
Oh.
Oh no, never mind. He's just wearing a Dodger jersey. He looks like Doug Christie if Doug never got famous.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm actually extremely intrigued though. That sounds very interesting. I want to see this.
Oh.
Like if Doug was never famous and was 10 years older.
Okay.
Just a bald guy.
Just a bald guy. Yeah.
The one good thing is Malik's 3-point percentage has come down. November, Keegan Murray shot 26. December, he shot 30%. 37.8 in January, 40.6 from 3 in February. In the one game, he shot 2 of 6, so he's 33% in the one game in March. But we're starting to see his numbers climb, which is huge.
Who's that?
Keegan.
Almost had 20 again.
He did have that. He had one shot in the game in the second half last game. I just don't.
It's unbelievable, dog.
How do you?
It's clockwork.
Yeah.
That's why I can't get excited when he scores 26 or whatever he had the other night. What did I say? I responded to your tweet. He hasn't scored 20 in back-to-back games since March of last year. It's been a calendar year since Keegan scored 20 in back-to-back games. I'm pretty sure that's what I said.
Yeah, man, Keegan, 4 of 9 from the field for 11 points in the first half. Takes one more shot.
Yeah, I tweeted this at you the other day. Keegan hasn't had back-to-back 20-point games since March 23rd and 25th of 2024. The Kings are 26-9 all time when he scores 20. He had 20 points, 20 or more, 13 times as a rookie, 18 times last year, 4 times this year.
2 shots. My bad. 2 shots second half.
Oh. 2 shots in the second half. It's nuts. Like
And
they
one of
won.
two.
Like that's the thing is like
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
Yeah, we'll have the handoff coming up here in a minute. 2 quick things. One, we have stuff to give you. We have a $50 Jiffy Lube gift certificate and an exclusive Insiders hoodie brought to you by Jiffy Lube. All you got to do is go to ESPN1320.com. You'll find the Jiffy Lube contest page. Super easy. And you're going to enter the code word SWEEP. SWEEP, sweep, because the Kings swept the Rockets over the weekend. Sweep, and enter to win a $50 Jiffy Lube gift certificate and an exclusive Insiders hoodie that you can only get through this giveaway, or if you work.
Sweep.
But chances are, if you're listening, you can only win it through this giveaway.
That's right.
Sweep, because they swept the Rockets. Dylan Brooks and the Rockets. Dylan Brooks, the only person in the Court of Gold documentary who, after the documentary ended, I didn't go, I like that person more now. Big thumbs down to him. Not a fan. Shea, thumbs up. KD, I always been a big KD guy, but 2 thumbs up for KD. Anthony Edwards, yes, absolutely. Big winner. Wemby, Jokic, Nick Batum, a couple of the other guys on the Serbian national team, salute. Love them.
Yeah.
Dylan Brooks, nah. What was the other thing we were talking about at the break?
I thought he probably should have got tossed for pushing.
Yeah, that was
DeMar.
crazy. I thought for sure he was out of there.
Like the double tech is fine, but when a dude shoves another dude, that should have been a second.
Yeah,
it was a full-fledged. You instigated a fight.
Yeah, escalated it.
Yeah.
Sure. Anyways, I remember what I was going to say. At some point, I'm going to stop complaining about how the Kings win. Because I feel like that game against Houston was awesome. Really great win. Jonas Valanciunas was terrific. Defensively, I thought they were dynamite all evening.
Mm-hmm.
But then we were just talking at the break, like, man, Keegan only took two shots in the second half. And I think, like, at some point, I'm just going to come to grips with reality. I'm just not there yet. But, like, man, you know what? This is just what it's going to be with them. With Keegan specifically.
I
and
feel
it's what it's going to be with Levine and Monk and DeRozan, and that's just what it is. And if they can figure out how to beat the Rockets by 10 at home, then you know what? So be it.
that's all that matters in the end.
That's it.
But at the same time, you want to see your young player develop, and just to stop his growth in a year, it seems really strange.
You ready? You locked in? You locked in over there? Yeah. Ready to go? All right. It's time for the handoff. Kenny Caraway's here.
It's time now for the handoff. Taking the handoff from James and Kyle today, here's KC, Kenny Caraway.
Yeah, it sure is. Kenny Caraway here for the handoff. Devo and KC coming up at noon. How's it going, man?
You know, the Kings won the last. Oh, my bad.
No, you're good. That's on me.
Yeah, it's going good. It's going good. Kings won on Saturday. That was a great win to see.
Really nice win.
Yeah,
It was a good win.
yeah. That was, one of the things that I had tweeted out. I want to know what you guys think about it. Is, man, this team is just, they are pretty tough, man. This is a tough team, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Think about all the things that they've had to go through this year, and here they are, still standing, still strong. Shout out to Antoine Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
And through all the things that are going on, Doug Christie under his leadership, 18-10.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I don't sneeze at that. I don't sneeze at that, man. I think this team, where you just kind of mentioned, there's going to be nights where they're just going to be who they are, and that's frustrating to some people.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, like, they're always going to compete, and they're always when their backs are against the wall. I expect them to respond to that. Will that be enough to win a game or not? I don't know, but they're going to respond to that.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit where, James, I think you and I are on the same page with this, and I think this is where there's been some frustration with me and James, and that's understandable. But no,
it's not.
I think you better like me. I'm guy on the left or guy in the hat, according to our new listener. So it's like, I agree with you. I don't think this version of the Kings is, they have too much talent to I don't think we're going to see them lose like 8 in a row. I don't think we're going to see them lose like 8 out of 10. Like, I think they just have enough good players to not let that happen,
right?
Or go in and beat the brakes off the Jazz and the Hornets. You go have a really nice win against Houston on Saturday. That was great. I think my greater concern, and James, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my greater concern is just like, what's the ceiling here? Because I think right now they're a nice team that, yeah, you might make the playoffs and maybe scare somebody in the first round, but like beyond that, I think that's kind of like that's maxing out.
Yeah.
And I think that's where both of when we talk about like the team build and what it looks like, and this didn't happen in this win, or they didn't do this well in this win. It's like, that's, I think, what we're more gearing this towards, is like, yeah, no, we know they can make the playoffs, but like, what's the next step?
And to that point, regardless of whose fault it was or how they got here, and that's a whole separate situation, they are doing all this on the fly.
No doubt.
Like they had to make a coaching change on the fly, or at least they felt they needed to. They had to kind of transform this roster on the fly. Once again, like I said, it could be a problem that they created on their own, but it still is what it is. Like, they had to do all this on the fly, and it's almost like, hey, get through this, get to the playoffs, and we'll try to like construct something that's more sustainable for the future later. But we got to get to where we got to get to for this season, and I think that's more so kind of what they're doing.
Sure.
Yeah, and like, look, Doug, I think he's 18-10 as head coach. He's done a remarkable job, because it's not just like, hey, you replaced a really good coach. You replaced a really good coach when your team was in a 5-game losing streak. You had to trade your best player. You've had to rebalance everything on the fly. And to be honest, they're playing a brand of basketball that I think is sustainable for the second half of the season. if you're going to be physical and you're going to play Valanciunas in major minutes and Jake LaRavia is flying around and being physical and Trey Lyles is coming in and being physical, I think you do have a shot. And because that's what really happens in the second half of the season. It's not like the good teams are just way better because they're more talented than they were the day before the All-Star break. They come in and they out-physical you in the second half of the season, and the officials start gearing up for the playoffs where they allow just a different brand of basketball. We saw it last year with the Kings where they adjusted really well. Even the year before, they adjusted really well after the All-Star break. Right now, we're seeing that, hey, maybe they are going to adjust. You're going to get there's nothing you can do about the schedule. There are going to be games. There are going to be 2-3 game losing streaks. There's nothing this team can do to avoid that. But I do think that the physicality aspect of this and needing to play Valanciunas major minutes, especially right now, will just crank up like whatever physicality they've already been playing with. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing to see.
JV, that's my boy right there.
He's
my
a
boy,
dog.
JV.
He's a
JV,
dog.
he's a nasty boy. Remember the Nasty Boys? Cincinnati. You might have been a little too young, Kyle.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the Cincinnati
Ron
Reds,
Dibble?
Dibble, Charlton.
Yeah, Norm
Jamie
Charlton.
Jackson.
Yeah.
The Nasty Boys. That was their well, I'm just saying that's what it was. The Nasty Boys.
They threw
and they won a
100
World
miles an
Series.
hour, all of them, and they came right at you. Like,
and they weren't nice. They were like,
Yeah.
They had a look to them. Valanciunas, nasty boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put it on a shirt. Put it on the insiders though, not on
No, that's going to no. You get credit for that one. Hey, everybody give Kenny Caraway credit for that nickname. I do think, James, when we're putting the show together today, you hit me with this question. I think it's a really good one, and I'd love to get your guys' answers on it. Because for me, you asked, did the win over the Rockets make up for the Pelicans and Warriors losses? And I don't think the Rockets game by itself made up for it. But when you take into account everything else that happened on Saturday, you had Golden State losing to the Sixers,
Minnesota lost.
Minnesota losing.
Did they play back?
I think
Dallas?
the Clippers lost.
You had
Clippers lost
basically
on Friday.
everything.
Oh, Minnesota lost on Friday to Utah.
And then that's right. And then the Clippers lost to the Lakers
Friday
again
and last night.
So like when you take into account everything that happened this weekend, it does. It's like that Pelicans loss and the Warriors loss are looking more and more like, oh, those were like blips. Those were more hiccups or little speed bumps than an indication of, oh, they just don't got it.
Yeah, and I understand where you're talking about looking at the team as a whole and kind of projecting for the team as a whole. When you talk about the standings and like what that game did to you as far as hurting you in the standings, you were behind the 8 ball. Then you got some losses that you weren't expecting from other teams, and now it's put you. It got you back above water.
It felt like 10 wins on Saturday.
Yeah,
like it really did. Especially Domas going down. It says I saw it all over the internet. Game's over.
Yeah,
guys can't win this one. This one's done. Season might be over.
Well, yeah, I thought the season. I said season's on the brink right now because we didn't know what his status was. I was like, season.
Yeah, you got Valanciunas.
I like JV.
Got the nasty boy in there.
Put it on the
that's
shirt.
Crazy.
Don't do
that.
The insiders.
I do think like when we looked at there's this 11 game stretch here, and we all thought, okay, how many wins can you get in that 11? And you were thinking if you could get 8-11, 8-3, you got a really good shot. If you're 7-4, that's not really all that good because of the position you're at in the standings. Right now, they're 6-8 in that stretch, and they've got a winnable game against Dallas. They've got the Nuggets. They've got a winnable game against the Spurs, and then and that's going to be your 11 game stretch right there. You still have the opportunity, even right now. You could go 9-2 in that stretch. You could also go 8-3 in that stretch, and that's exceptional basketball. It like doesn't matter how we turn it. That's exceptional basketball. We can talk about. So when I say did they make up for the game with the Rockets win? I mean, this team got mollywopped by the Rockets all last year. Were they 0-4 against the Rockets? You had 2 wins against the Rockets earlier, and it was like, oh, you already beat them twice. It's like you beat them twice, but it was a totally different team. But you have a totally different team. They could easily have just run over. If I were looking at all those games, I would have circled the Rockets and put it as a loss.
Yep, same.
And you got one. And so that does make up for one of those bad losses that you had.
Especially if you know you're going to lose Domantas Sabonis 2 minutes into the game.
Oh, yeah.
A minute and a half or whatever.
That's crazy.
No, that was really, really impressive.
Capitalize tonight. You got an opportunity. Capitalize tonight.
This is the one. Tonight is, of all the big games coming up, like given all the circumstances, tonight is a big one. And you guys got a big show coming up. What do you guys got on D'Lo and KC?
We got more Kings,
Hope
more
so.
Domantas Sabonis, more wrestling.
Got some boxing. 13th round.
13th round is popping off today.
Apparently, it's going to be
It's
the
popping
chatty
off
house is
today.
already fired up.
Yeah, 13th round popping
Little
off.
Debo trade.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Very good. Can't wait. D'Lo and KC should be a fun one. That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. Joe Brazil hanging out with us behind the glass. Really appreciate you, Joe. He's going to be here every day, and we're so thrilled to have him along for the ride here on The Insiders. All right. We're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. He's James. I'm Kyle. That's Kenny Caraway. D'Lo and KC are coming up next. I'm trying to vamp. I got, we're good. 4 seconds. Till tomorrow at 10 a.m. Drink water. Be nice to people. Bye.